And I remember he went to a party held by the chairman of the party, Chief Akinloye then, Meredith Akinloye, and he brought a champagne that was customized for Akinloye. Got the champagne from Ibadan, and partyman comes and you put it on the table and tell them our party chairman threw a party and we were being served this champagne.
Hello everybody, you're welcome to a new episode of Nigerian Lenses, the podcast where Nigeria's story is told through the eyes, minds and pens of great statesmen. I'm Sam, your guide on this journey of discovery, reflections and sometimes the uncomfortable truths. Every week, we will bring you excerpts from the most profound books or speeches ever written about Nigeria or people in Nigeria. And we won't stop there. After each episode, we'll be joined by a guest analyst to unpack the ideas, dissect the issues, and link them to Nigeria's present-day realities. And today we'll be taking a look at a classic that has stood the test of time, a book that shook tables, sparked conversations, and still echoes in the corridors of power to this day. I'm talking about The Trouble with Nigeria by the literary legend himself, Chinua Achebe. Today we'll be diving into chapter 1 of Chinua Achebe's book, where he wastes no time in setting the tone, making a bold statement and direct statement about Nigeria's most fundamental challenge. I won't give it away just yet. You'll hear it for yourself. So sit back and listen carefully. The trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. There is nothing wrong with the Nigerian character. There is nothing wrong with the Nigerian land or climate or water or air or anything else. The Nigerian problem is the unwillingness or inability of its leaders to rise to the responsibility, to the challenge of personal example, which are the hallmarks of true leadership. On the morning after Murtala Muhammad seized power in July 1975, public servants in Lagos were found on seats at 7:30 in the morning. Even the go-slow traffic that had defeated every solution and defied every regime vanished overnight from the streets. Why? The new ruler's reputation for ruthlessness was sufficient to transform in the course of only one night the style and habit of Nigeria's unruly capital. That the character of one man could establish that quantum change in the people's social behavior was nothing less than miraculous. But it shows that social miracles can happen. We know, alas, that the transformation was short-lived and it had begun to fade even before the tragic assassination of Murtala Muhammad. In the final analysis, a leader's no-nonsense reputation might induce a favorable climate, but in order to effect lasting change, it must be followed up with a radical program of social and economic reorganization, or at least a well-conceived and consistent agenda of reform, which Nigeria stood and stands in dire need of. I am not here recommending ruthlessness as a necessary qualification for Nigerian leadership. Quite on the contrary, what I am saying is that Nigeria is not beyond change. I am saying that Nigeria can change today if she discovers leaders who have the will, the ability, and the vision. Such people are rare in any time or place, but it is the duty of enlightened citizens to lead the way in their discovery and to create an atmosphere conducive to their emergence. If this conscious effort is not made, good leaders like good money will be driven out by bad. Whenever two Nigerians meet, their conversation will sooner or later slide into a litany of our national deficiencies. The trouble with Nigeria has become the subject of our small talk in much the same way as the weather is for the English. But there is a great danger in consigning a life and death issue to the daily routine of small talk. No one can do much about the weather. We must accept it or live with it or under it. But national bad habits are a different matter. We resign ourselves to them at our peril. The aim of this booklet is to challenge such resignation. It calls on all thoughtful Nigerians to rise up today and reject those habits which cripple our aspiration and inhibit our chances of becoming a modern and attractive country. Nigeria has many thoughtful men and women of conscience, a large number of talented people. Why is it then that all these patriots make so little impact on the life of our nation? Why is it that our corruption, gross iniquities, our noisy vulgarity, our selfishness, our ineptitude seem so much stronger than the good influences at work in our society? Why do the good among us seem so helpless, while the worst are full of vile energy? I believe that Nigeria is a nation favored by providence. I believe there are individuals as well as nations who, on account of peculiar gifts and circumstances, are commandeered by history to facilitate mankind's advancement. Nigeria is such a nation. The vast human and material wealth with which she is endowed bestows on her a role in Africa and the world which no one else can assume or fulfill. The fear that should nightly haunt our leaders but does not is that they may already have betrayed irretrievably Nigeria's high destiny. The countless billions that a generous providence poured into our nation's coffers in the last 10 years, from 1972 to 1982, would have been enough to launch this nation into the middle rank of developed nations and transform the lives of our poor and needy. But what have we done with it? Stolen and salted away by people in power and their accomplices, squandered in uncontrolled importation of all kinds of useless consumer merchandise from every corner of the globe, embezzled through inflated contracts to an increasing army of party loyalists who have neither the desire nor the competence to execute their contracts, consumed in the escalating salaries of a grossly overstaffed and unproductive public service, and so on ad infinitum. And so on ad infinitum. Does it ever worry us that history, which neither personal wealth nor power can preempt, will pass terrible judgment on us, pronounce anathema on our names, when we have accomplished our betrayal and passed on? We have lost the 20th century. Are we bent on seeing that our children also lose the 21st?
You're listening to Nigeria in Lenses, where we turn powerful words from Nigeria's greatest minds into reflections for today. If this conversation is sparking new thoughts in you, do us a favor, subscribe, share, and leave a comment on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening from. Your feedback helps more people discover this podcast and ensures we keep bringing you insightful content like this.
Welcome back. Now, joining me today to unpack Achebe's powerful message is former acting governor of Ekiti State, a former speaker of the Ekiti State House of Assembly, as well as elder statesman, is Prince Adetope Ademiluyi. Prince, thank you for joining us on Nigeria in Lenses podcast.
It's my pleasure being with you. Good evening there.
For this episode, we've been reviewing the book by Chinua Achebe, The Trouble with Nigeria, and specifically, the spotlight is on the first chapter, Where the Problem Lies. And there, Chinua Achebe makes a statement that for him is affirmative. He says, the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. There is nothing basically wrong with the Nigerian character. There is nothing wrong with the Nigerian land or climate or water or air, but the problem is the unwillingness or inability of its leaders to rise up to the responsibility. Yes, to challenge the personal example which are the hallmarks of true leadership. Do you think that this statement made as far back as the 80s reflects the current situation that we're still dealing with in our dear country, Nigeria?
Yes, to a very large extent. Yes, I subscribe to the fact that we have a problem of leadership. That cannot be denied. But the truth of the matter is, we are always bothered about our problems from the helms. We look at our problems from the very highest points of it. When, as a matter of fact, we should be worried about our problems from its root cause. But let's make this very, how do I put it, let's make this very analytical now. Reading through the first chapters of the book, it became obvious that that book was written about 1982-83, at the very most 1984. Good. When that book was written, I was an employee of Nigeria Bank. I was a clerk with Nigeria Bank then in 1983. That is 41 years to date. Very many of our leaders today were probably just being born, or at the very most, probably just about entering or leaving secondary school when that statement of a dearth of leadership in Nigeria was made. Now, 41 years after, the same things are valid to be said about leadership in Nigeria. What does it tell us? It means that we have always had a followership that is faulty. We have always had a citizenry that is faulty. It is a matter of our orientation, because if it were just the leaders in the 70s and 80s that were bad, there isn't anybody who was governor in the 70s and 80s that's alive now. Practically all of them are dead, or at least 80% of them are dead. 80% of the people who called the shots in the military regime and the Second Republic of Nigeria are dead.
But there is still Obasanjo, who was in charge even before this book was written.
For God's sake, Obasanjo is just one man. Obasanjo is not just one man. Okay, you tell me there is a Danjuma, but
Yes.
don't forget there is a dead Muritala. There is a dead Musa Yaradua. There are so many of them that are dead.
Indeed.
So many. But now, from that period to now, a new crop of leadership has evolved in Nigeria. And they still have the same problems that those leaders of 40, 50, 60 years ago had. So it means it's an inherent problem that devolves from the followership into the leadership. It's like the genes of a child. You born a child that has a defective gene. Probably he can't talk at infancy. He can't talk at adolescence. You expect him to talk at adulthood. It will not work. There's a child that was born deformed without limbs. And you expect that when that child grows up, he's just going to automatically grow with limbs because he has grown old. No, it does not happen. So what we actually have a problem with in Nigeria is the citizenry. Not leaders, not followers, it's the entire crop of people we call Nigerians that have a problem. And if you read through the book very well, in the very first chapter, you would understand that the man has actually made some statements that need no serious interpretation to show that yes, the problem traverse the whole strata of our society. He said, let me try to paraphrase some things he said. He said leaders should fear that they may have betrayed irretrievably Nigeria's high destiny. But it was what he had in mind then, where the Awolowo's, the Azikiwes, the Waziris, the Rimis and Aminu Kanos, the Shehu Shagaris. But after those ones, others came, and they still have the same defects that we claim that those ones had, probably even worse. And like I told somebody the other day, the fear I actually have now is, while we are assuming that our generation is bad, we are defective, we are impossible, I have a higher fear for the next generation. I have a much higher fear for the next generation. Look, we are talking about a Nigeria now where 18-year-olds kill their own biological parents to make money. So what are we talking about? We are talking about a Nigeria now where a 16-year-old, no, two 16-year-olds will conspire to kill another 16-year-old, their friend, to make money. And those are the leaders of the tomorrow that we are forever looking forward to. Like the Yorubas will say, "Wani okabimole obioro." So it's like the thing is almost inbred in us. We are corrupt, we are tribalistic, we are nepotistic, we are everything you want to say is not right for nationhood. But we all want to shy away from the faults that are attributable to every one individual of us, to then push it at some people we call our leaders. But for God's own sake, those leaders, they did not fall from heaven. The leaders are the children of some people. They are the fathers of some people. They are the siblings of some people, peers and friends of some people. And they can't be any different from the society that bred them. A man is good when he's bred in a good environment. And this is the truth. The Englishman says the apple does not fall far from the tree.
But let's specifically look at what is the fault of the follower here. We've seen instances in which some of these leaders foist themselves on the followers, and the followers are left with no choice but to allow the leaders dictate the pace of how the administration should go. And then eventually they succumb to whatever values and virtues that the leaders, set. And maybe that is why Chinua Achebe said in a part of the chapter that in the final analysis, a leader's no-nonsense reputation might induce a favorable climb, but in order to effect lasting change, it must be followed up with a radical program of social and economic reorganization, or at least well-conceived and consistent agenda of reform.
Look, you are not very far from what I am saying. Yes, I have spoken about orientation, but like I said, it's still the same thing. It's our fault. I have witnessed the elections in Nigeria for a while now. From the Second Republic to date, I have witnessed and participated in practically most elections. From the Second Republic to date. But okay, let's look at it this way. From my hand of the nation, from the elections I've witnessed, this perception of some people forcing themselves on the populace is not actually very correct. It hardly happens. Yes, I admit that in some parts of Nigeria, you actually can say that, but it is still a fault of the people not standing up to their responsibilities most of the time. You see, sometimes I talk to people and they talk down on the political class, they talk down on the leaders, and I just ask, did you vote in the last election? And we say, I don't have the time. I can't waste my time. Elections that will not come. I just tell them, please shut up. You don't have a right to talk. If you are failed in exercising a civil responsibility that society places on you, you don't have a right to force the result of those who exercise those rights. But this is the truth. Let me read, let me paraphrase some things in that book to you. The wealth acquired by Nigeria, in the last 10 years, it said one was squandered in uncontrolled importation of consumer goods. It was happening in 1982. I remember that at a time in 1981-82, Shagari actually had to introduce what he called austerity measures. And they had to ban the importation of certain items. I know toothpick, tomato paste were some of the things that were banned then. But till tomorrow, my brother, don't we import toothpicks from China? Don't we import cotton buds from China? Dental floss from China? So it is as it was. So it still is. Okay? He said, yes, there's always been inflated contracts to party loyalists who probably don't even have the capacity to execute such contracts in the first place. It was happening in those days. But is it not happening now? And more poignantly, he said, escalating salaries to a grossly overstaffed and unproductive public service. You have a situation in Nigeria's public service where the secretary to an officer would have another secretary. You find out that in an office where provisions are just made for 4 people to sit, you have 10 employees attached to that office. You have people who are not doing anything. And when technology gets better, the effect of technology in ordinary private driven businesses is reducing staff and using technology. We have technology now, but we have an ever increasing public service. Right. It's part of the problem. But of course, you now say, what work do people do? I've always been an advocate of government making business very easy for people to do, so that everybody will move away from wanting a white collar job. You encourage artisanship, you encourage productivity, and the nation is so blessed that the avenue for productive enterprise is almost limitless. But of course, yes, we say people don't have the impetus to go into business. People are not encouraged. And again, you have people who actually have the temerity and the strength to go into business. You start a small business, you employ 3 people, and before you can write your name in ink and have it right, the 3 people you employed have ruined the business. So it's a problem with our persons. Right. Looks like it's just the way we are. So what we need is an entire reorientation of our psyches. Every man from inside his house, the husband to the wife, the children to the parents, because it is when we transform our families, when we transform our own sex into good people, that we can now present good people to lead us.
Is orientation of psyche also the solution to effectively tackling corruption? Because that is one issue that particular chapter and even the entire book itself kept mentioning as a major issue in Nigeria.
Yes, corruption. I once told somebody when I was very young, I'd not even thought I would ever be a politician. After I left secondary school, I went back to school. My father was a politician. And I always remember him ranting about the misdeeds of his party men. My father was a member of the NPN. I say that without guile. He was a member of the NPN. As a matter of fact, my father was the state secretary of the NPN in Ondo State in the early 80s. And I remember he went to a party held by the chairman of the party, Chief Akinloye then, Meredith Akinloye, and he brought a champagne that was customized for Akinloye. He brought the champagne from Ibadan, and he'll put it when his partyman comes, and he'll put it on the table and tell them, our party chairman threw a party and we were being served this champagne, and he was marking hitting a particular milestone in Naira watts. My father was always complaining, and somewhere along the line I was always joking with my friends that there is nobody who will be able to stop corruption the way I see it. And they'll think, you are mad, it will stop. And now tell them, look, I have seen corruption. You have seen corruption. If you have the opportunity, you would be corrupt. And you just think, if it was done by so person, why can't I do it? Now there's one day somebody now said, what's the solution? I said, a very crude and primitive solution. Gather everything that everybody has, put it in a pool, and ask everybody to start at the opening blocks again. And the person said, and what would happen to you? I told him, yes, I'll become a scavenger like everybody else, because everybody would have everything taken from them. But is it practical? Is it practical? Can it be done now? But now, this is the truth. When we were young,
yes,
some 40 years ago, some 50 years ago, the people we referenced were people we knew were very intelligent, articulate men who could speak good English, men who had a passion at their jobs, men who were successful in industry, people you can put a name, a title, and a work to. They were the people we eulogized. They were the people we saw as, oh no, that's a champion. That's a man to emulate. I want to be like so person. I want to be like so person. There was the Omoluabi thing in people then. But these days, what do we eulogize? We eulogize money. Any non-entity. It does not matter what he is. Please know that did not say who. I said it does not matter what he is. So long as he has money to flaunt, he becomes a chief. Even before attaining any chieftaincy, before anybody has the consciousness to even offer him a chieftaincy title, the next man who would address him will address him as chief. Because you want him to feel big, you want him to feel nice, so you can get a piece of the money you don't even know how he acquired. You know somebody last year was a pauper. 12 months after, he disappeared 12 months ago. He's back and throwing money around, and nobody is asking, how did he make money? Everybody is excited. And it becomes a celebrity overnight. We start clapping for him when he comes around. Everybody stands up when he enters a gathering. But nobody is asking how he made money. So when we continue to hero worship people who do not have a source to their acclaimed worth, then we would always have problem, because we have lost what we used to value. We used to value honesty. We used to value integrity. We used to value the steel in men. But there are very few such men around now. Everybody is a big man so long as he can bring some cash and he can ride a flash, he can throw money around. And you just find everybody running after him. When we were young, you even want to marry, your parents want to know who you want to marry. Who is the father of that girl? Who is the mother of this man you are talking about? I've not heard this name before. Because they don't want you to go the wrong way. They don't want you to be associated with probably the son of a man who is known to be a miscreant. They don't want you to be associated with the daughter of a man who is known to have been a thief when he was younger. But today, nobody asks questions again. What you're interested in is, what's the title of the father of that girl? Is he a senator?
Let us pause here. The second part of the conversation with Prince Adetope Ademiluyi about the content of the book, The Trouble with Nigeria, will continue in our next episode. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and share. And also make sure you keep the notification bell on so you would know when we put up another episode. This podcast is produced by Rufai Oseni. I'm Sam. See you next time.